Hello everyone. So my name is Iulia and I'm a robotics engineer from University of Kent. Let me share my screen for presentation. So I'm going to introduce what I do at the University of Kent and a bit of my research as well. Hello. So who am I? I have a PhD in electronic engineering. So I was working with a humanoid robot, which I'm going to present later, and developing walking and grasping algorithms for humanoid robots. I have a master's in information security and biometrics from University of Kent as well, and a bachelor in computer science. Both of them are related to iris recognition. I'm an academic STEM ambassador for the University of Kent and an IEEE volunteer, and I'm currently a research associate at the University of Kent, working on a EPSRC project between engineering and psychology, developing human-like machines for recognizing people. So what I do, I'm going to talk about the robotics part of my career. So I work with the robot that you can see in the pictures. The robot is called the Now robot, and it's quite small, as you can see. And I used it for my PhD for developing walking and grasping algorithms for as a platform, a robotic platform. And I also use it for promoting engineering in schools, for example, visiting schools and doing programming for the robot. The robot was also part of an European project, so I was using the robot as an assistant to a disabled person. So what we were doing, we had a humanoid robot and we had a robotic wheelchair, and these two devices were able to interact with each other. So for example, one scenario was that the patient was in the bedroom and the wheelchair was, for example, in the living room. The patient can tell the robot, now can you please fetch my wheelchair, and robot will just connect to the wheelchair and drive it next to the bed. Or another scenario was that the robot was sitting in the corner of a room, scan the room continuously and detect if someone has fallen. If he detects that someone has fallen, then it will first check that he actually has to intervene and call for the ambulance or for a carer. In 2016, I started doing outreach events. So I used a robot to go into schools as a University of Kent ambassador and as an IEEE volunteer. So depending on the level of on the year group that I'm visiting, we do either interactive activities, for example, building tangram puzzles that the robot then can recognize, or doing actually hands-on programming with Python that will then be run on the robot.
Here we go.
So I'm more than happy to answer as many questions as I can until 11:30. You can use the chat facilities to communicate with me.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Iulia. Thank you very much. I'm just trying to sort out the screen now. Hi, guys. I hope that everybody's enjoyed that. I can hear a school talking, so I'm just going to check and mute some of you guys. Okay. Did everybody see the screen okay? And did everybody have any questions for Iulia? Hello, chat facility.
What age did you get interested in robotics? I was interested initially in computer science when I started my high school. So I did computer science for my undergraduate, and then I started getting interested in robotics when I was about 22 years old. How many robots have you built? I haven't built robots myself. I am a control engineer, so I only work on implementing algorithms for controlling the robots. What inspired you to become an engineer? When I was doing my master's, I went to see my supervisor from then, and the robot was sitting in his office. So he asked me if I want to do a PhD in robotics, and I said yes straight away. So that's how I got involved in robotics and became an engineer. How did you make your robot? The robot is not made by us. The robot is made by a French company called Aldebaran Robotics, which was now bought by SoftBank Robotics, a Japanese company. What was the biggest challenge you had to overcome? In usually sometimes when you program something for your robot and you run it on the robot, it will not go as planned, so you'll have to start debugging and try to fix any errors or try to improve the algorithm that you developed so that it's more accurate and more stable. What robot would you like to build next? I'll probably like to build still a humanoid robot, because these are more difficult to make. Will robots change the future? Yes. If you think about it, we already kind of use robots in our houses, because you can consider the TV a robot because we have smart TVs. You have uh, washing machines, which are also a kind of robots that are built for a specific task, washing the clothes. um, you have some people have Alexas in their houses, so that's a very smart assistant that can control stuff around the house. For example, if you have smart lightning and stuff like that. So robots will change the world in the sense that it will make it easier for us to live. How much would a robot like this cost? Are they for sale? The robots are for sale, but at the moment they are only sold for research purposes and universities and stuff like that, and they cost about £9,000 at the moment, the latest version. How many robots have you created? I'm a control engineer, so I mostly work on developing the algorithms for controlling the robots. Do you think robots will take over the world? I don't think that's going to happen in the next probably 100 or 500 years, because the robots are nowhere near that advanced. So they are not intelligent, and they can't become as human-like as we are. How long have you been an engineer? About 6 years. What inspired you to make robots? Um, so I just when I went to see my supervisor during my master's project, I saw the robot in his office, and when he offered me a PhD in robotics, I just accepted it because I fell in love with the robot. What software do you use to design your robot? So as I said earlier, I don't design the robots myself. I just program them. So for programming, I use C++ and sometimes Python as well. What is the most difficult part of your job? Probably having to run experiments at the beginning, because you don't really know well, you have an idea of what you want to happen, but you don't really know what to expect. Do you do mechatronics engineering in your university? We will have mechanical engineering starting in a couple of years' time, but not yet. What other things have you designed, created rather than robots? So other things that I've worked on were biometric systems for recognizing people using, for example, irises, faces, or voices. Do you like your job? Yes, it's quite enjoyable. Is it a well-paid job? It depends on what level you start at. So as an engineer, you'll start somewhere around probably 25,000 per year. Have you ever had a robot affected by bugs? Um, if your program is not running properly, or if you connect the robot, even like the robot is a basically a APC. So if you connect to the internet, you can get viruses, or if you don't program, if you don't create your program properly, you can have bugs in the program and so on. So that's why usually what I do, instead of running the program directly on the robot, I run it in in a simulation environment that can prevent the robot from getting damaged. Which company do you work for? I work for the University of Kent in Canterbury. What is your favorite part of your job? Probably having to give presentation and traveling. What practical use is a humanoid robot? So humanoid robots are mainly designed to help people. For example, you can use them as a personal assistant, or you can use them as an assistant for a disabled person, or for the elderly. So you can have a humanoid robot in the house, and instead of someone going to grab a bottle of water for themselves, they can ask the robot to do that for them. So they are more of an assistant. Do you think robots will change the future? Yes, it will make it easier for us to live in, because they will be able to do stuff for us. How long does it take to code the robot? It depends what you want to do. So, for example, my grasping algorithm took about a year and a half to finish the whole thing. How do you become an engineer? You go first to the university, or you can go into apprenticeship as well. In the university, you can do engineering of, there are different kinds of engineering: electrical engineering, mechanical engineering, robotics engineering. So you can choose different branches of engineering. What did you want to be when you were younger? When I was younger, initially I wanted to be a medical doctor, but more exactly a cardiologist. But then I realized that I'm a bit afraid of blood, so I can't do that. How long did it take to build the robot? I didn't build the robot myself, but the company that built it, the first version of robot that they released in 2007, took about 4 years to finalize, which was a very, very simple version. Have you got any advice on how to get creative ideas? You can do a bit of research online, so you can see what's out there or what other people are trying to achieve. So you choose an area, let's say robotics, for example, and then you go on Google and see. You can even start with Wikipedia and use links at the bottom and see where what other people have done, and try to get inspired from there. What is the process for starting a project? You first need to do a timeline of how the project is going to develop. So you have to initially, usually the first thing that you have to do is research. If you want your project to be novel, you have to make sure that no one else has done it, or that it's actually doable. If people have actually tried to do it before, did they succeed or not? Will you bring an idea that will actually make it succeed? What is the biggest robot program you've ever made? The biggest robot program was probably for my PhD, which was for the grasping algorithm, because that was the new part of my PhD. So no one has done it for humanoid robots, and it was a bit complicated as well. Do your robots ever go wrong? Yes, they can go wrong. For example, my robots have very sensitive feet. So if I try to use them on a surface that is too slippery to walk, they won't be able to walk because of that. How many hours do you work? Being in a university, it depends. So you can work 9 to 5, or you can work from, let's say, 12 to 9 p.m. Or sometimes you can work more than 8 hours or 9 hours a day. Sometimes you can work weekends. Sometimes you can have some days off. So it depends on how your project is going. Is it fun being involved in the process of creating it? Yes, it has to be really fun. How many people do you work with to design a robot? It depends how complicated your robot is. So for example, a project similar to the now robot, would take different teams, like mechanical team, design team, electrical engineering, and so on. And each team will probably have about 4 or 5 people, or even more, depending on the scale of the project. What was the main purpose of building this robot? Uh, this robot initially was built just as an assistant for people. So for example, you can just have it sitting on your desk, and then it can check your emails, it can entertain you, have a conversation with you, and so on. At the moment, the robot is used in many other things. For example, it's used for disabled people as an assistant, or it's used for people with dementia, for example, exercising in the morning and just interacting with them. So it has more ways of being used than when it was designed. What others engineers do you work with? At the moment, for my project, I'm the only engineer on the project because it's a very, very small and very short project. But I did work with, for previous projects, I worked with other robotics engineers and path planning and so on. Why did you choose to be an engineer? I just fell in love when I saw the robot. I fell in love with the robot, so I decided to switch from computer science to engineering. What difficulties do you encounter when designing a robot? You can have faulty parts, or you can have stuff happening that you didn't consider, and so on. Do you use any other robots? I've only played before with the Lego robots and with a few Arduino cars. How many robots have you made so far? I'm not building the robots myself, so I'm just doing the control bit of the robots. What is the largest robot you have engineered? The largest one has to be the Now robot, because our university has a restrained budget, so we can't afford a bigger robot. How long did it take you to train? Well, I did my undergraduate, which was 3 years, then 1 year of master's, and then 4 years of PhD. So 8 years of education in total. But it now depends on how far you want to go with your education. Can you estimate when robots might be available to the general public? These robots that I'm using were available for the general public at one point, but then the company decided to stop it because, well, one of the reasons is that it was too expensive for someone to buy it, because they used to be about £15,000 and now they are just 9,000. So the idea is that the price is going to drop until people will actually be able to afford them. So I'm not entirely sure when they are going to be available for general public again. Is it fun being involved in the process of creating it? Yes, it is. How will robots affect the world environmentally? Well, it depends, because obviously they are using electricity to actually work. So it's exactly the same thing as using an electric car. It's better than using something that uses, for example, petrol and stuff like that. But it's still a bit harmful for the environment. When did you begin building the robot, and how many attempts did it take to get it right? I don't build the robot myself, so the robot was bought from a French company. I'm just doing the control bit, so just controlling the movement of the arm and the movement of the legs and so on. Have you worked in industry before, or always researcher at university? What is the most important part of the robot? I haven't worked in industry. I've been a researcher at university since my undergraduate. The most important part of the robot will probably have to be the, let's say, the brain. So it has a processor that lets the robot think and decide what action to do and how to move each of the limbs. Have you ever wrecked a robot when you were trying to make it? As I said earlier, I don't make the robots myself. I just program them. But I did break sort of one of the robot's legs after programming it. Have you ever had a robot that's not worked as well as you thought it would? What did you do about it? Yes, so this kind of things happen all the time because when you try it in the simulation environment, it might work fine, but when you put it on the actual robot, you will have stuff that you haven't thought of, external factors that can interact with the robot and can change the way the robot behaves comparing to how it behaved in the simulated environment. So the only thing you have to do is just go back and try to find the bits of code that you have to modify and modify it so that it can work in the physical world. How long does it take to make a robot? If you were not a control engineer, what would you be? A robot it depends on how difficult the project is. So for example, the Now robot took about 4 years to get the first version for the company that created. Honda has a robot which is called Asimo, and they spent 7 years trying to create a robot that was released the first versions because they were working on creating a very stable robot that was able to actually walk. So it depends on how big the project is. If I was not a control engineer, I probably I would have been a mechanical engineer. How do you program one? So you can program them using different programming languages. So you can use C++, or you can use Python, or you can use MATLAB. Some people use Java, but it's not as good as using C++ or Python. Do you get treated differently from men in your workplace? No, I think I'm treated the same or sometimes even better. How do you control the robots? What type of programs do you use? So the robots that I was using, they have two processors, one in the head and one in the chest. The one in the head tells the robot what to do. The one in the chest allows the robot to actually move the arms, the head, the legs, and so on. So you use different programming languages like C++, for example, and you will send commands to the robot that will tell where exactly, at what coordinate, for example, it has to move the arm to pick up an object, for example. Does it involve coding? Yes, it involves a lot of coding and at the same time a lot of math because you have to calculate trajectories for the arms and for the legs. How did you program the robot to control the wheelchair? So the robot and the wheelchair were connected via Bluetooth, and the only thing that you would do is send the coordinates of the robot to the wheelchair, and when the wheelchair gets the coordinates, it already has the whole house planned, so it knows of any obstacles, where the door is, for example, where the bedroom is, and so on. So it will know how to drive to the coordinates that were sent by the robot. What is the current progress in AI? Well, AI is not as advanced as human intelligence, but it is starting to get a bit more advanced. I wouldn't say that at the moment we can have robots or agents that are able to compete with a human. They can compete with a human in a certain task. So you can train them for a certain task, for example, playing chess, and they can become very good at playing chess. Whereas a human can do different kind of tasks without being trained for just one particular one. Does programming ever go wrong? Yes, it can go wrong. You can have bugs in your programming, or you can have stuff that don't really work well in the real world. What are the dangers of robots malfunctioning? It depends on the robot. If, for example, it's an industrial robot in a factory, if a robot malfunctions, everything can go wrong, and it can, for example, let's say, injure a person if there's a human operator around it. For smaller robots, like for example the Now robot, if it malfunctions, nothing bad is going to happen because it's very small, so it will probably just fall over, for example. How long does it take to program the robot? It depends what you want to program it for to do. For example, my grasping algorithm took about a year and a half to 2 years to finalize. What is the most useful thing your robot can do? It can grasp an object from a unknown position, previously unknown position, very accurately, which is quite difficult for humanoid robots because it's very difficult to simulate a very human-like arm movement. Would it be possible to create a robot to help people choose their clothes, and how could they be the right size? Um, yes, you can. So you just have to program it, create a sort of artificial intelligence program that can have your own, for example, likes incorporated in the software. What is the funniest thing you have made a robot do? Um, I was visiting a nursery a while ago, so what I made the robot do was to blow kisses at the children. Or when the children were getting close to the robot would kiss them. Uh, what was your favorite robot? My favorite robot will have to be the Now robot. How are the robots powered? So the robots have a battery pack at the back, and it can last up to 90 minutes if it doesn't do anything difficult. If it does, for example, walking or moving the arms, it will last about 45 to 60 minutes. You charge it like a regular battery, for example, like charging your phone, so it stays plugged in, and it takes about 4 or 5 hours to fully charge. What does the future hold for robots? I think in the future robots will be able to actually help us perform more personal stuff. For example, at the moment robots are being used in factories for building stuff, but in the future I think we can actually use them in reception, or even at home they can do stuff for us around the house. Can your robots be hacked? Um, my robots cannot be hacked because they can't be connected to the internet directly, so they have to be connected to a PC. So that avoids the robots being hacked. What skills you need to become an engineer? It depends what kind of engineer you want to become. So you will need obviously programming skills. You will need mathematics and probably a bit of physics. What are you programming now? At the moment, I'm working on an interdisciplinary project between psychology and engineering. So we are trying to build a human-like machine that can recognize someone's face or someone's voice more similar to how a human does. How big are the robots? The robots are about 60 centimeters tall. Can robots have conscious? No, this is a very hot topic in engineering and in artificial intelligence, but at the moment, we cannot implement conscious on the robots. How many females are in robotics engineering? I can't give you a number, but I have met quite a few. Which language do you use for coding? I use C++ and Python. Is it possible to build a waterproof robot? Yes, you can build one. There are robots that can actually go into water. Um, is there a limit to what you could create? Obviously there is, because when you create a robot, you have to use different processors and different motors. So depending on what is the state of the art for those devices, that's going to be going into the robot. So you can't actually go further than that. How long does it take to program a robot? It depends on how complicated the program is. What happens if there is a virus in the robot? What would happen, and what would you do? It depends on how for what the robot is being used. For example, if there's a virus in a robot that is in a factory, then that's going to be quite a bit of a problem because it can actually attack the human operators. Whereas if it's a virus in a small robot, it can't actually do anything, so you can just reset the whole thing straight away. Do you have to make something to make something else? What is your favorite hobby? Um, Usually you can either make, for example, for the robots, you can create the motors yourself and then add them to the robot, or you can buy the motors already created and you can use those ones for the robots. What is the first robot you programmed? What was it? What was its function? The first robot that I programmed was the Now robot, and the idea was to have it as an assistant for a disabled person. Has a robot ever gone on fire? Um, I haven't been in that situation. Probably they have in other places, but I'm not entirely sure. How long will the robot last? So the battery lasts for about 90 minutes if it's doing very easy stuff, or it actually has to walk or grasp something, it will last about 45 to 60 minutes. Have you ever coded a mechanical suite to aid walking, etc.? No, I haven't. Did you do any engineering in primary school? No, I haven't. We were only doing maths and a bit of sciences. Is it hard to be an engineer? Not if you enjoy it. What is the easiest robot you have ever built? The easiest robot probably would be a Lego robot. Do you travel a lot in your job? Yes, I'm traveling quite a bit, every 3 months at least. How many people does it take to build one robot? It depends on how complicated the robot it is again. So it depends on the scale of the project and so on. How will the production of robots affect the world environmentally? Um, well, obviously, it's the same like using a TV, because a robot will have to use electricity, so that will be an issue. But we can probably in the future create solar robots that can just recharge themselves from the sun and so on. Do the robots have names? Yes, my robots do have names. So our school is School of Engineering and Digital Arts, or short is EDA. So our robots were named to have those initials. So one is Edison, one is Donna, and one is Alamet. Where do the robots go at night? I just put them in their boxes. What sort of code do you use to make robots? Is there more than one code, or are they all the same? It depends on the preference of the engineer. So my robots can accept Python, MATLAB, and C++. So I can code in any of those three languages. Other robots might probably accept just one type of programming language. So it depends how they were built. How fast are your robots? The walking speed is not that fast. So the fastest they can go is 18 centimeters per second. That's the most they can have as speed. How many robots have you programmed? Just about 2 or 3. How intelligent do you think robots can become? Um, I don't think they can become that intelligent at the moment. So they can become very good at one task using artificial intelligence, but they can't become human intelligent. So they can't become better at different tasks. Are there robots for swimming in the water? Yes, there are robots that can swim in the water. Are there any limits to what you can create? There are limits in the sense that it depends what you are planning to use for the robot, but you can, or for your invention, but you can develop new things that haven't been invented and go beyond the limits. What is your favorite thing about being an engineer? It's quite flexible, and it's never you don't have to do the same thing every day. Which coding language do you use? I use C++, sometimes Python, and sometimes MATLAB as well. Is your job complex? Sometimes it is, sometimes it's very, very easy. So you can't predict how complex it's going to be. Are they waterproof? Have any ever broken? My robots are not waterproof, and yes, one of them, the leg broke while I was trying to run an algorithm on it. What jobs did you do before university? So I went into university undergrad right after high school, and then straight into master's, and then straight into PhD, and then straight into research associate. So I haven't had any break between these three. Um, can robots work together? Yes. For example, my robots can communicate with each other. They have infrared sensors that can allow them to pass information from one to another. How strong are the robots? My robots can only lift up to 1 kilogram, so they are not that strong, but they are strong in the sense that if they fall over, for example, because they trip on something, they aren't going to break. What physical activities can your robots do? They can grab, for example, an object from a table. They can walk on a flat surface, carpet or laminated, or they can go on an inclined surface and come back down on an inclined surface. And they can also dance, obviously. Can robots do gymnastics? Yes, there have been a few videos with similar robots like mine that were actually doing splits and stuff like that. Do you think robots can behave like human or have emotions? They can't really have emotions because we don't understand emotions. So if you will program a robot that has emotions, they will have your own emotions implemented in them. So if you program them to like, if for example, you can program them to like, let's say chocolate, you can program them to not like coffee and so on, but they can't actually have emotion. Is the robot better than Alexa? Um, in a sense, yes. Because a robot can actually move around the house, whereas Alexa is it can't move. But you can communicate more with Alexa than with a robot. What is the difference between computer science and engineering? In computer science, you mainly do just coding, whereas in engineering, you do more hands-on work. What or who inspired you? Um, I'm not entirely sure. I just became very interested in sciences when I was a kid, so I just went from there. Is there a robot that could possibly eat? No, there isn't, but people are working on developing a robot that can clean the ocean. So, for example, it will eat the rubbish, and then people will actually take the rubbish and decompose it. Um, do you have any siblings that are engineers? I have a sister that's also a computer scientist. Did you enjoy building toys as a kid? Yes, I did. Do robots help animals? Um, they can. They are animal friendly, but I haven't seen any research involving robots and animals. How heavy are the robots? My robots are about 6 kilograms. What is your favorite robot? My favorite robot is the Now robot. Do you think there are any drawbacks to the use of robots? Yes, in a sense, because some people might become lazy because they have a robot, so they don't really think that there's a need for them to do particular tasks, whereas robots are there just to facilitate things for us. Are some of the robots waterproof? Yes, you can find waterproof robots. My robots are not. Are there any negatives in your job as an engineer? Sometimes you have to work overtime. For example, when you have an important deadline, or because I'm a research associate, I have to publish papers. So when you have to publish a paper, you will have to work overtime. What influences what your robot looks like? So the company, when they decided to create the now robots, they create the competition in France for primary schools in which children had to design a robot, and the robot the design that won is the now robot. Could there be a robot to help blind people? Yes, you can program them to help blind people as well. Do any of the robots you've made use AI? No, they don't, because I don't work in AI. I work just in the control part of the robot. What do you think of the future of robotics will be? I think the robots will start to become more and more used, because, for example, NASA is preparing a robot that can go to Mars. Um, uh, I think in Thailand they have a robot that can check if there are survivors under buildings after an earthquake and so on. Are there robots that can talk? Yes, most humanoid robots are able to talk. They have speakers, so that facilitates the talking for them. What's involved in the programming of a robot? A lot of maths, especially if you are doing control. Are there robots that can fix broken things? Yes, you can create robots that can fix broken things, but they won't necessarily be human-like robots. Can robots be future primary school teachers? Um, they can be assistants to primary school teachers. So for example, you can have the teacher, and you can have the robot. The robot can take the attendance. The robot can make sure that the children behave. If the children cheat, they can ask easy questions and so on. What do the robots usually look like? It depends. So you have different kind of robots. You have industrial robots, which are the ones that you see in factories that, for example, build cars. You can have bipedal robots, which look more human-like. So they have two legs, they have two arms and a head. So they are more human-like. You can have also animal looking robots. For example, the Sony Aibo is an intelligent dog robot. So it depends. That you can find them in different forms. You can even have, for example, the Roomba vacuum cleaner is a robot that can walk around because it has sensors and it cleans the house. Can robots help you with your homework? They can if you teach them how to do your homework. Are there robots that can pick locks, open doors? Um, you can create a robot that can do that, but again, it might not be human-like, because, for example, my robot will not be able to hold something that it's so small that can actually help him unlock the door. The robots have feelings. They can't have actual feelings. So if you do want to program a robot to feel something, it will be the way you feel. So it will be a mirror of yourself. Do your robots contain any liquids? No, they don't. Can you program your robot to go upstairs? There has been research about it for my robot to go up the stairs, but the problem is the robot being so short, its legs are quite short as well, and the stairs are usually quite tall, so it won't be able to go up the stairs. So unless you design stairs that are smaller for the robot, it won't be able to do it. Do you have any top tips for someone wanting to become an engineer? Yes, engineering is a very interesting subject if you want to choose engineering, and you can actually contribute to the world by designing something and building stuff. There are different kind of engineering. So you have civil engineering, you have mechanical engineering, you have electrical engineering. So you won't actually you have to decide exactly what you want to do. Civil engineering is more like architecture, building buildings and stuff like that. So I would say if you do think that you want to choose engineering in the future, make sure that your math is very good and your physics is very good as well, and probably do a bit of programming as well, so that you can start university with all this knowledge already. Can a robot ride a bike? It will be quite difficult, because for the robots, for humanoid robots, it's already quite difficult to walk, because it's difficult for them to maintain stability. So on a bike, it's a lot more difficult. What happens to broken robots? Well, you either discard of them or you fix them, depending on how expensive it is to fix them. Can any robots do sign language? Um, Not really, because most robots have only one motor in the hand. So that means that they can only close and open their hand. So they can't use their fingers individually. You can have, for example, prosthetic arms, which are more advanced, so they can use their fingers individually. So you can use those ones for sign languages. Can robots be programmed to grow taller or bigger? No, you can't do that, because the materials are fixed. What is the first ever robot you programmed, and is it still working? The first robot that I programmed was the Now robot, and yes, it's still working in the department. Is it possible to make robotic animals? Yes, you can. For example, Sony Aibo is a robotic dog. Can robots save lives? Yes, they can. So there's a robot in Thailand, I think, that can, after an earthquake, it can go look for survivors and actually take them out. Can you program robots to play video games? Yeah, I don't see why not. Are robots male or female? It depends on what you want to program them to be. So for my robots, they were initially designed to be males, but you can program them to be females if you want. So, have a robot ever has a robot ever malfunctioned and hurt somebody? Yes. So an there was a case in somewhere in Scotland where the Da Vinci robot, which is a surgery robot, malfunctioned during an operation. So the doctor that was performing the operation, it was an open heart operation. He had no training on the robot, and when the robot malfunctioned, he didn't actually know what to do, and there was no one else there to help. All the engineers were away, so the patient obviously died. So stuff like that can happen. Is it possible to have a solar powered robot? Yes, you can. People are working on that. Can robots sing? Yes, they have speakers that allows them to talk or sing. What is the oldest robot you have seen? I haven't seen them. Well, the oldest robot that I've seen is the Now robots, and because they are quite old, the versions that we have, so they are from 2011. Um, if there was a fire, what would the robot do? Well, you have to program it to do something in case of a fire. So the robot will do what you asked it to do. Can you program a robot to build things? Yes, we already have robots that build things. They are industrial robots, for example, building cars, or even some robots are used for building houses and buildings. Would robots melt in the sun? No, they don't. Why does a robot have 3 fingers? It all depends on how the design was created. So, for example, the Now robot has only 3 fingers because that's how it was designed. That the winning design was created. Since the robot is only used for grasping something, so it only has to close and open its hand. It doesn't really need more than 3 fingers. How tall could a robot be made? I think the tallest robot might be Asimo, which is 1 meter and 50 centimeters or something like that. Can robots be fit and unfit? I don't think so, no. Could robots teach students instead of their teachers? Robots can be assistants to teachers because obviously they do not have the intelligence needed for teaching. So they can just teach very basic things. Do you design any robots that are not people? No, I only work with humanoid robots. Are robots smart? They're smart in very limited way. Can robots read? Yes, you can program them to recognize characters and then put them all together and read. Can robots transform themselves? No, they cannot do that. What is the most realistic looking robot you have made? I don't make the robots myself. I just build the control part of the robot. But the most realistic looking robot in the world is Sophia, which has the face that actually looks like a human, but it's a bit creepy because she doesn't really behave like a human, so it's still very robotic with a robot with a human face. Can robots help with experiments? Yeah, it depends what kind of experiments you want to perform, obviously. Can robots see in the dark? Only if they have the necessary equipment for it, if they were built for seeing in the dark. Could a robot spot bad people in the community? No, it cannot do that. It will have to be obviously smart and have artificial intelligence on it. Can robots erase writing from whiteboards? Depends how tall they are. Since my robots are quite small, they can't do that. What is your least favorite robot you've ever programmed? My least favorite robot that I've ever programmed. I don't think I have one. I enjoy programming robots. Could a robot destroy things? Yes, it can actually. If it goes wrong, or if you actually programmed a robot to destroy things. Can a robot help a dentist? Yes. Like for example, like I was talking earlier about the Da Vinci robot, which is used in surgeries in hospitals. You can have a robot that was built specially for dentists to help perform different operations. Are you going to upgrade your robot in the future? Hopefully, if the university will have the budget for it. Which other field of engineering would you consider working in? It will probably be mechanical engineering. Who invented the robots? Actually, the first humanoid robots that existed, which were more automatons, were invented by a Swiss watchmakers, which was Jacques Dra, and there were three of them. One of them was able to play the piano. One of them was able to write up to a sentence with up to 60 characters, and one of them was able to draw. And they are still working after 500 years. How often would a robot need charged? It depends what you have it to do. For example, my robots, well, and usually all humanoid robots, the batteries don't last that long, maximum 90 minutes. So you'll have to charge them after 90 minutes all the time if you plan to use them continuously. Could robots help improve unhealthy lifestyles? Yes, you can design them to do that. Would a robot melt in extreme heat? Probably it will. Do robots have ears and hear? They can hear, they have microphones. So for example, my robot has 4 microphones, one in the front, one in the back, and 2 in the ears, so that it can detect where the sound is coming from. Can a robot drive a car? They can't really drive a car, but we do have driverless cars, which are considered to be robots. Can robots feed people? It's going to be a bit difficult for them to do that. Can a robot make electricity? Or can a robot be programmed to measure weight? They can't really make electricity. they are not able to do that, but you could program the robot to measure weight, yes. Do you think the future is for robotics? Yes, I think so, because we are already using smartphones, we are using Alexas, Google Home, TVs, Roomba vacuum cleaners. So we already are used to having robots around the house. So I think the future is for robotics. Can a robot tell the time? Um, Probably it can. You just have to teach it how to read the time, or just to make it read its own clock and tell you the time. What is the smallest robot that you know? The smallest robot that I know, well, people are working on nano robots, but at the moment, the smallest robot I know, I can't remember what the name of it is, but it's quite small, about 2 centimeters tall, and it can track a line. Can robots cook? Yes, you can have robots that cook, but they won't be very human-like, obviously, because they have to have precision. Are robots reliable? It depends what you want them to do, so, and which robot you are using, because each robot is designed for a particular thing. So if you use the wrong robot for the wrong task, it will obviously not do what you expect it to. Have you used Crash the program? I haven't used it. I used it a tiny bit when I was just curious what it is, because I heard people talking about it, but I've never used it myself to program. Can robots fight or injure someone? It depends on the size of the robot. Yes, it can injure someone. Can robots brainwash people? No, they can't. They don't have the power, and they are not that smart to do that. Can robots keep secrets? Only if you can program them to do that. Can robots understand each other if they talk? Yes, they can. Some of them are usually built so that they can communicate with each other. If you had one piece of advice for primary school pupils, what would it be? Well, sciences and engineering and STEM, any STEM subjects are very important, and at the moment we have very little number of engineers actually going into engineering. So we are lacking engineers. So I would suggest improving your skills, your STEM skills, chemistry, physics, math, anything that has to do with science, so that in the future, if you will actually decide to go into a STEM subject, you will have those skills already. So you don't have to go back and try to regain those skills. Are there any problems that you recommend we could look at for the project? You can look, for example, for a project, I would suggest looking at how to improve life. For example, cleaning oceans, or clearing the pollution, and so on. So those are very important things that we are fighting with at the moment, and people are trying to improve them. So you can look at those issues.
Okay, guys, we're actually coming to the end. Thank you very much, Julia, for your time, and I hope that everybody's enjoyed the interview with Julia, and I'm sure you'll say thank you to her if you could. So thank you again for joining us, everybody, and I wish you well with the project, and I hope you enjoy it. I will talk to you soon, Julia. Thank you very much again for your time.
Yeah, no problem.
Okay, so we're sounding off now. So thank you again, and we'll see you next time. Don't forget, you can join as many of these interviews as you wish. Hi, Iulia.
No, I'm waving at the kids.
Bye,
Bye.
everybody.